Welcome to The Explainer, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're about to dive into something really important. We're going to completely dismantle one of the absolute biggest viral hair care trends taking over the internet right now, and we're doing it using pure, hard clinical data. We're diving deep into the real science of exactly why castor oil damages hair.
So I've got to ask you, is your favorite viral hair oil actually causing your hair to fall out? It's a pretty shocking thought, right? But it's a question we absolutely have to ask. Because honestly, what you're constantly seeing pushed on your social media feeds as this, miracle growth cure, well, it might actually be destroying your hair strands and literally suffocating your scalp.
And hey, I'm not just saying that to be dramatic. Recently, a couple of medical doctors actually evaluated the most viral hair oils on the internet. They put them through this rigorous scientific testing scorecard, and out of everything they tested, they gave castor oil this shocking exact title, the most overrated oil. No way, right?
So here's our roadmap for today to scientifically unpack all of this. First, we'll look at the viral myth. Second, mechanical damage. Third, biological damage. Fourth, the root cause. And finally, we'll wrap up with the scalp-first solution. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the viral myth, expectation versus clinical reality.
So when these doctors ran these oils through a clinical scorecard looking at follicular bioavailability, which basically just means can the oil actually reach the living root to stimulate growth, the results were honestly stunning. Pumpkin seed oil took the A tier, showing a massive 40% increase in hair count. Down in the C tier, coconut oil offered zero growth, but it did provide some decent shaft protection. But then, way down at the bottom, castor oil, along with the super hyped patana oil, completely failed. They landed dead last in the F tier with absolutely zero human clinical evidence for hair growth.
Now, what's really interesting here is the massive disconnect between social media hype and actual science. Despite its massive popularity, castor oil's growth claims are purely theoretical. People really cling to this idea that its ricinoleic acid triggers a blood flow pathway, but guys, there is zero human clinical proof that this actually translates to more hair on your head. But you know what isn't theoretical? The clinical reality that castor oil leaves the heaviest, thickest, most suffocating residue on your head out of almost any oil they tested.
Let's move on to section 2, mechanical damage, the danger of thick oils, and see how this builds into actual physical harm.
Have you ever heard of acute hair felting? This is a severe, irreversible hair matting caused by heavy occlusive oils. Listen, if you're constantly coating your fragile edges or ends with raw, thick castor oil, it can actually tangle and mat your hair fibers so severely that literally no amount of detangling will save it. It literally forces you to cut your hair off completely. And obviously, that is the exact opposite of length retention. And unfortunately, the damage doesn't just stop at the strands. The thick, occlusive nature of heavy oils creates a literal trap right on top of your skin. When you smear these heavy oils onto your scalp, you're trapping sweat, dead skin cells, and random debris, effectively suffocating your skin barrier. It's not just harmlessly sitting there.
This perfectly sets us up for section 3, biological damage, the yeast cascade.
This right here brilliantly illustrates the cause and effect chain that leads to hair loss. Step 1, you apply a heavy occlusive, like castor oil. Step 2, your scalp gets suffocated under that thick residue. Step 3, and pay attention, because this is the critical one. A naturally occurring yeast on your skin called malassezia begins to feast. It literally feeds on that trapped oil and dead skin. And finally, step 4, this yeast overgrowth triggers inflammation, turning your scalp into an itchy, flaking environment. And what happens when a scalp is inflamed? It sheds hair. You're accidentally causing the exact shedding you were trying to prevent. Because of this whole yeast cascade, I really need to stress a vital medical rule that the doctors made crystal clear. If you apply any oil to your scalp, you absolutely must shampoo your hair at least once a week. Period. Leaving heavy oils unwashed on the skin is basically like catering an all-you-can-eat buffet for scalp yeast. You do not want to do that. Okay, let's shift gears to section 4, the root cause. Internal health over topical oils. Medical evaluators use this really powerful metaphor to explain this concept. They say oils are just the garnish, while internal health is the meal. I mean, it makes so much sense, right? You simply cannot out-oil a systemic biological issue. No amount of topical castor oil is going to fix what's broken on the inside of your body.
So if your hair is shedding, you really have to look at those internal drivers. We're talking things like low ferritin, which is your stored iron that often gets depleted by heavy cycles, or maybe PCOS, where excess androgens are actively shrinking the hair follicle, or even normal hormonal shifts like estrogen drops during menopause. See, your hair follicle is an incredibly energy-hungry tissue. When your body is stressed or lacking nutrients, it literally powers those follicles down just to save energy. So pouring castor oil onto a hormonal imbalance, it's fundamentally useless.
Now, you might be wondering, what about that massive 40% increase we talked about earlier? Well, that came from a study showing a 40% increase in hair count for men with pattern hair loss. But the key is how they achieved it. They took oral pumpkin seed oil capsules. The success came from ingesting it internally, not from rubbing oil on the scalp. Big difference.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the scalp first solution, proactive versus reactive care. Let's just compare these two different philosophies. Over on the left side, we have your traditional oils like Castor and Botana. These are totally reactive. They rely on a single raw product that leaves a suffocating residue and, as we've seen, triggers yeast and inflammation. But over on the right side, we have the modern evidence-based ToxiTress system. This approach is proactive. It actually recognizes that healthy hair requires a clean foundation, using a multi-step detox that clears buildup and specifically protects the scalp when it's under the tension of protective styles like braids and wigs. Let's walk through this structured 4-step ritual from ToxiTress because it completely flips the script on the old single oil method. First, you reset with their Extract Foundation Detox to clear out all that suffocating buildup. Next, you prepare the skin barrier with the Restore Botanical Infusion. Then you treat and balance your scalp with Purify. And finally, you finish and seal it all with the Velvet Clean Scent Mist. Notice the intent here. This system is actively combating buildup and yeast instead of contributing to it. It prepares the scalp ahead of time rather than just trying to fix the damage later. And what about those super fragile edges everyone's always trying to save with castor oil? Well, the clinical guidance is loud and clear. Replace the unproven heavy oils. You're way better off using something formulated for the specific biological stress of a tight install. Something like the Targeted Temple Therapy Edge Repair Pen by ToxiTress. Honestly, your hairline needs targeted, scientifically formulated relief from tension. It definitely does not need a coating of thick, occlusive oil that could lead to that irreversible hair felting we talked about.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question. Are you actually treating the root cause of your hair health, or are you just drowning it in garnish? True hair health doesn't come from a viral TikTok trend or a thick, suffocating oil. It comes from internal health and proactive, clinical scalp hygiene. I really hope this explainer empowered you to rethink your routine. Thanks so much for hanging out and learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.